Everyone recommends the same 5 books after ACOTAR, and half of them are not the same experience at all. They just have fae in them. That is not a recommendation. That is a search filter. The thing you are actually chasing is far more specific than a genre. So here's what this video is. 4 things that make ACOTAR feel the way it feels. 8 books scored against all 4, with a straight answer on which ones they miss. And at the end, 2 books that get pushed constantly and fail, including one by Sarah J. Maas herself. And I want to say why this matters, because it is not pedantry. When somebody hands you a book that has fae in it and none of the engine, you do not finish it. And then you decide the problem is you, that you are in a reading slump. You are not in a slump. You were handed the wrong book. 1. A heroine who starts with no power at all. Not modest power, none. 2. A dangerous male lead who turns out not to be the villain, which is a very different thing from a male lead who is simply rude to her for 400 pages. 3. A world with courts or factions worth mapping so that the politics carry a weight the romance can borrow. And 4. A slow burn that actually pays off, rather than one that simmers for 3 books, and then resolves in a single paragraph. Fae are optional. Those 4 are not. I am going to tell you how many of the 4 each book hits, because a 3 out of 4 book can still be exactly the right recommendation for you, as long as you know which one it is missing. That is the whole point. One more thing about the order, I have not ranked these by how good they are. I have ranked them by how close they sit to ACOTAR. Further down this list does not mean worse. It means further from home. The Cruel Prince, Holly Black, 2018. A human girl is raised inside the fairy court that murdered her parents, and she works out that the only way to stop being prey in that room is to become something the court is afraid of. This is colder and sharper than ACOTAR, and it has the best court politics on the entire list. Nobody in it is straightforwardly good, including the heroine. The scheming is not a subplot that keeps interrupting the romance. The scheming is the romance. 4 out of 4, and the strongest court on the list. Read it if the political knife work was your favorite part of ACOTAR. Skip it if what you actually wanted was warmth, because this book does not have a great deal of that on offer. From Blood and Ash, Jennifer L. Armentrout, 2020. A young woman is raised as a sacred maiden nobody is permitted to touch or even speak to, and the guard assigned to protect her turns out to be the most dangerous thing in her life. This is the closest structural match on the list, and it is not close. It hits all 4 beats in roughly the same order ACOTAR hits them, right down to the point where the kingdom's official version of events stops holding together. 4 out of 4, and the safest recommendation on this list. If what you want is the same shape of experience all over again, take this one. The single honest warning is that it is a long series, so go in knowing you are starting a commitment. Serpent Dove, Shelby Mahurin, 2019. A witch and the witch hunter, who is sworn to kill her, are forced into a marriage that neither of them wants, and that neither of them is able to simply walk away from. If the part of ACOTAR you go back and reread is the antagonism curdling into something else, this is the purest version of that anywhere on the list. Most of the book is 2 people refusing, at considerable length, to admit the obvious thing. 3 out of 4. The world is thinner than the others here, and there are not really courts to map, so the politics never quite carry weight. But the burn is the best on the list. Take this one for the enemies, not for the world building. The Bridge Kingdom, Daniel L. Jensen, 2018. A princess is trained from childhood for exactly one job: marry a rival king, find out where his kingdom is weak, and hand that information to her father. And then she meets him. This is the most underrated book here, and the one people messaged me about afterwards. That premise could very easily have been a gimmick, and instead, the whole book runs on it, because she is genuinely extremely good at the job she was raised to do. 4 out of 4. Read it if you want a heroine who is already competent on page 1 instead of growing into it across a trilogy. This is the book on the list most likely to catch you off guard, purely because almost nobody talks about it. Quick checkpoint. If you have been keeping score, that is 3 books at 4 out of 4 and 1 at 3. The next 4 are where this list gets more argumentative. And then we reach the 2 that fail, which is the part some of you are going to fight me on. House of Earth and Blood, Sarah J. Maas, 2020. If what you want is simply more moss, this is the right book to go to next. And I want to be very clear that I mean this one and not Throne of Glass. It trades the court for a modern city, and it is built on grief rather than on a bargain. The burn takes its time in a way that pays off enormously, and there is frankly more going on in this world than there was in ACOTAR's. 4 out of 4. The honest warning is that it is long, and the first 200 pages are almost entirely setup. A lot of people quit somewhere inside that stretch. Everyone I know who pushed through says the same sentence afterwards, which is that it was worth it. Kingdom of the Wicked, Carrie Maniscalco, 2020. It is set in Sicily, and it follows a witch hunting whoever murdered her twin sister, which walks her straight into a bargain with a prince of hell she should not be going anywhere near. The bargain is the engine here. If the deal fair makes at the start of ACOTAR is the hook you never quite got over, this book is built on that same hook, and it is far funnier than the premise makes it sound. 4 out of 4 with the best atmosphere on the list. Read it if you want the dangerous bargain dynamic right at the front of the book. Skip it if you need the romance to move quickly, because this one is going to make you wait for it. Divine Rivals, Rebecca Ross, 2023. 2 rival young journalists are covering a war between gods, and they end up writing to each other through a magic typewriter without knowing who is on the other end of it. This is the softest book on the list by a wide margin, and that is exactly why it is on it. It is the one to reach for if ACOTAR's darker turns were more than you actually wanted, and it proves that the 4 things do not require cruelty. 3 out of 4. The courts are the weak spot. This is a war rather than a political map you can hold in your head. But the heroine genuinely starts with nothing, and the burn is lovely. Take it if you want the feeling without the violence. 4th Wing, Rebecca Yarros, 2023. Yes, it is the obvious answer, and I very nearly left it off the list for exactly that reason. It is here anyway, because when you actually score it against the 4 things, it passes all of them cleanly. A heroine everyone writes off, a male lead with every reason to be the villain, a world worth mapping, and a burn that pays. If you somehow have not picked it up yet, that combination is the entire reason nobody will stop talking about it. 4 out of 4. The only reason it is not sitting at the top of this list is that you have almost certainly already heard of it. And the point of this video is the 7 you had not. Read it. Just read it after the others. One thing before I name them. Neither of these is a bad book, and I am not disqualifying them for quality. I am disqualifying them for fit. A book can be better written than everything else on this list, and still be the wrong thing to hand somebody who has just closed ACOTAR. Now the 2 that fail, and these are not obscure picks. Both of them turn up on basically every list of what to read after ACOTAR, and I think both of them send people away disappointed for reasons that are completely predictable in advance. The Bear and the Nightingale, Catherine Arden, 2017. The first book of the Winternight trilogy. Let me say clearly that this is a beautiful book, and I recommend it often. It is simply not the book you are looking for right now. It is folkloric, historical fantasy, built on Russian fairy tales, and the romance is barely a thread in it. On the test, it is 1 out of 4. Readers who go in expecting ACOTAR bounce off it hard, and then they blame the book, which it does not deserve. And Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Maas, 2012. Same author, and comfortably the most common recommendation people make after ACOTAR. And I think it is the wrong entry point very nearly every time somebody makes it. It opens as far more traditional epic fantasy, and the romance takes several books to become the thing you actually came for. Book 1 reads very little like A Court of Thorns and Roses. It is also 8 books long. Go to Crescent City instead. So, where should you actually start? If you want the closest thing to the same experience, From Blood and Ash. If you want the scheming and the court politics, The Cruel Prince. And if you want the enemies to lovers turn, and nothing else matters, Serpent and Dove. If you want more moss, House of Earth, and blood. If you want something gentler, Divine Rivals. If you want to be surprised by a book nobody mentions, The Bridge Kingdom. And if you have not read 4th Wing yet, that is not really a recommendation. That one is homework. All 8 in one breath, in the order I would hand them to you. The Cruel Prince, From Blood and Ash, Serpent and Dove, The Bridge Kingdom, House of Earth and Blood, Kingdom of the Wicked, Divine Rivals, and 4th Wing. Every author and every year is written out in the description, so you do not have to scrub back through this looking for a spelling. If this stopped you from starting Throne of Glass expecting ACOTAR, then it did its job. There are free printable bookmarks at hookedtobooks.tv/bookmarks. Print them, cut them out, use them. And tell me in the comments whether I'm wrong about Throne of Glass, because I know that a lot of you think I am. That is genuinely the argument I want to have underneath this video. Subscribe. We do one of these every single week.